Hello guys, Nika here with your daily neuro nugget. We did miss yesterday's daily nugget because in my defense, I was dying. I had a fever and popped positive for the vid. So because I've had all this time to think, we need to talk about Eric Gower, Gower. Before we get started, remember guys, this is for entertainment purposes only. These are speculations. Just because I mentioned somebody in a video does not give you the right to go and bug them, bother them in any way. Also, you can disagree with me, but do it in a respectful manner. If you're putting things that shouldn't be in the comment section, YouTube is probably going to delete them. And if I see something completely out of line, I'm going to delete it myself because I'm all about respect. We can agree to disagree and be respectful. But Eric Gower, the last person to see 2 out of the 4 victims alive, and he was let go because of a Taco Bell receipt. That was all it took for Moscow PD to just stop their investigating. It makes you wonder. It makes you wonder a lot because Eric Gower, first of all, his name was misspelled in the unredacted legal document. It was spelled as Grower. Was this misspelled or was this a misdirection? Because we know that Moscow PD loves to do both. They love to do both. So what in the world is going on? Why did they stop talking about the private driver so quickly? So Eric is a Moscow boy. He's lived there a long time. From what I've researched, he went to university there. He was part of a fraternity, Sigma Alpha Epsilon, which by the way is currently being investigated. Okay, fall 2023, it's a mess. If you guys want to look into that fraternity, that's a whole other 2-hour video right there. It's a mess. But he's a frat dude from there, late 20s, apparently works for the university. Why was a married man driving 2 drunk young single females is my question. Was this part of a gig? Was he just trying to help people? Was this part of a gig from the university? Because Steve said very quickly this was a private driver who was a friend. Was he actually a friend of Steve, or is he just saying that because he gets good vibes from this young man? Because I don't understand why a 50, 60-year-old man would be friends with a late 20-year-old that he doesn't even know. Okay, so private driver for 2 of the girls. This private driver, Eric, happens to have a wife that works for Moscow PD. Another coincidence. There's a Moscow PD pamphlet that you can find in the last page. One of the last pages, Eric is dressed as Santa, so he is, in my opinion, heavily involved with Moscow PD. You know, I think it was like a Christmas thing or a Toys for Tots thing. But still, whether it's a coincidence or not, in my opinion, all of these patterns should always be noted because they can show us a greater picture. Wife works for Moscow PD. He's heavily involved in helping Moscow PD. Another coincidence. Last person to see the girls, 2 out of the 4 victims alive. Supposedly he dropped them off at 1:56 a.m. Allegedly, his Taco Bell receipt was from 4 a.m. So you're telling me that this guy has over 2 hours to do whatever he wants, but Moscow PD is just gonna let him go, not even gonna question him. And do you know why he was even questioned to begin with? Do you think that he went to the police himself, or do you think that they contacted him? Because from my research, Olivia, Steve's daughter, is the one who contacted him first. Olivia went through the calls her sister had and said, I'm going to call everybody here, last people she contacted. The driver was one of them. She took his name, she took his phone number, she took that information to Moscow PD and said, you need to follow up on this guy. Is it possible that their follow-up was, oh, you need to show us. We know you didn't do it, but you need to show us something. What is your alibi? Oh, I was at Taco Bell at 4 a.m. Here's a receipt. How convenient that you happen to have that digital evidence, in my opinion. Good timing. So, is it also a coincidence that he lives 1,200 feet away from Bryan Kohberger? Yeah, 1,200 feet away. Is it also a coincidence that he tried to paint Bryan Kohberger in a bad light in one of the interviews? He tries to say, oh, my wife was very uneasy when he first moved in. She said it was creepy, something along those lines. If you find the interview, send it to me, please. But to try to paint someone like that in a news channel, just interesting, right? And he lived 1,200 feet away from Bryan. Like, is this actually a coincidence? It's just, okay, too many coincidences going on right now. Is it also a coincidence that this driver, Bryan, is the one that submitted Bryan's car? He said that in the span of a few days, he gave Moscow PD a list of 13, 14 white Hyundai Elantras that he had spotted around December 10th. He says that in the beginning, he thought the car was too new, but he was going to submit it anyway. How convenient, right? To me, you know what that seems like? That seems like, sir, you are now inserting yourself in the investigation. That's what that sounds like to me. In the beginning, guys, I told you, in my opinion, the person who committed this crime or the people that committed these crimes are people who blend in well with society, who have probably good backing from a group of people. People think highly of them, probably have backing from PD or have relatives in PD. Something to think about. This driver said he was so shaken by what took place that he had to take a whole week off of work. That's enough time to clean a vehicle. I'm just saying. He also seems to contradict himself quite a bit because in an interview, he's saying he dropped Kaylee off on another female. Why wouldn't you just say Maddie? And in another interview, he's saying, yeah, I knew them I knew them very well. They were great workers in Mad Greek. So do you know them or do you not? Because if you know these two girls and you're saying that they were great workers, it sounds like you really know them. But then it sounds like you're self-distancing, classical distancing, when you say Kaylee and another female. Very strange to me. And again, taking a whole week off of work, submitting so many vehicles in such a short time frame, seems like you're very committed. Or self-insertion. I'm pulling up some information here, guys, because people like this should have been questioned more, in my opinion. Why did they brush him off so quickly? Is it because he has those ties to PD? Remember, guys, bias. I've talked about it before. Bias. When you look at a person and you get a vibe, not a vibe, there's a stereotype, right? So because I'm wearing maybe this, you'll be like, oh yeah, she's a hippie. Or if I'm wearing another outfit, you're going to think differently of me. All of your background, all of his background, his fraternity background, his work, close ties to the university, close ties to Moscow PD. Is it possible that that led Moscow PD to not even consider him as a suspect? The thing that stood out a lot to me as well was this weird freaking quote. When I read it, it gave me chills because so strange. Okay, he said something about the crime seeming more brutal than what a scorned lover would do. How would he know? So on top of trolling parking lots for white Elantras, now you have this weird quote to add to it, and then goes on to contradict himself again, says, I had not heard about the crimes until days later. Days later? Excuse me, sir? Olivia says she contacted you the day after. The day after the crime took place. How is it that a person who supposedly drives around to keep people safe has no freaking idea what every single news channel, every single news source in his town online is talking about? I had not heard about the crimes until days later. Very strange. You're telling me that Olivia never even mentioned why she got a hold of you. Very sketchy, in my opinion. Definitely someone that should have been looked at much more deeply. I want to know what his real alibi is. What the hell were you doing from 2 to 4 a.m.? Because if I were in the shoes of an investigator, sorry, buddy, but your 4 a.m. Taco Bell receipt is not going to cut it. Just isn't. You literally have nothing. You have nothing to say. Where were you from 2 to 4? People say BK had no alibi. This is worse. This guy actually had no alibi. We don't even know where the hell he was at from 2 to 4 a.m., allegedly. We know he was at Taco Bell at 4 a.m. What were you doing in between? Why is a private driver taking these girls around? Is it possible that maybe something happened in the vehicle? And the fact that he said another female and didn't mention Maddie, although he knew Maddie, is it possible that there was something going on with him and Maddie? Maybe things got out of control. Maybe things got physical. He's a married man. Is it possible that maybe he had to silence someone from talking? Is it possible that he's the one that was harassing the girls? Could this still be him getting some sort of revenge for maybe one of the fraternities or something that took place in school? How many times has he driven the girls? I want all those questions answered before this guy's actually cleared. Let me know down in the comments below. Do you think he was cleared too quickly? Do you think all the things I just talked about are a coincidence? I don't know. The fact is that all of these weird patterns or coincidences don't look good. And it doesn't look good that they let him go that quickly either. Is it Eric, who Steve was referring to, that were not looked at deeply? Is that who he was talking about? Maybe it wasn't Jackass. Maybe it was this guy. Because still, to this day, the spotlight is on him the least. The least. I wonder why that is. Enough yapping for the day. I'll go take my fever medications. Drink some water. Again, all speculation. Don't go bother this guy online. His Facebook, though, I scrolled through it, and He seems very physically fit. He seems to do a lot of hiking in the mountains in that area. There's a lot of pictures with a lot of mountains. So he has fitness and he knows the area. It looks like he knows a lot of desolate areas in the state. Yeah. Just very strange.